I don't know if it was algorithms or fate, but I got an email yesterday about a new line of wallpapers, or at least a new to me line of wallpapers from Wallship, Wall Shop. It's a wallpaper company here in the United States. I think it's based in the United States. Anyway, the line of wallpaper was called Lingua Franca, and I thought, wow, this is uncanny. I was just talking about lingua franca the other day, and if you haven't heard the episode about lingua franca, take a look at it. It was a few days ago, and it was entitled "Savvy Pigeon," Pidgin. On that episode, I talk about a Mediterranean lingua franca known as Sabir, and that I talk in that briefly, or attempt to, in the beginning and the end of the episode as well, if you want to hear that. So, this email from Wallshop, I think it's pronounced Wallshop. The reason that I said Wallship, because it has a O with a stroke through it, which I don't know. I think that alludes to maybe Danish or Norwegian or maybe Scandinavian influence in the design, but I'm not exactly sure. It makes sense. I mean, the wallpaper that I have purchased and hung from Wall Shop is a kind of definitely mid-century. I could see where the Danish mid-century might come in terms of design. So I can see that maybe is why the O with the stroke through it. That O with the stroke through it is an O. Is the U. It depends on what language you're speaking, but it's basically the equivalent of an O with an umlaut on it in German. It's that same idea. It's just represents it differently. The umlaut, the two dots on top. And two dots is what you call those, because in English there are multiple uses of two dots. There's an umlaut, like in German, where like there's the O with the two dots over it, and it sounds more like eh. That sound is pretty close to the Norwegian and Danish, although both the Norwegian and Danish sounds are slightly different to my ear. I'm not going to try to replicate them, but they're close to that sound. I think that was close to the Danish, maybe. So actually, in the Danish and Norwegian alphabet, these are the second to last letters because they have a Z or a Z, as I think they say in their language, or Z if you're in the United Kingdom, Canada, and maybe Australia. In the United States, we say Z for the last letter of our alphabet. And after the Z in these two languages, in Danish and Norwegian, comes an AE ligature thing. So the A and E, when they were like really close together, like in English, you'll see that with encyclopedia sometimes. And that's pronounced like A in one of the languages. Not sure which one. And then there's the O with the stroke through it, so the U. And then there's an O, or I think that was the Norwegian pronunciation. And that's an A with, I think, an angstrom over it. And that's the last letter of the Danish and Norwegian alphabet. So it's kind of cool because after Z, they have three vowel sounds of O and A types, and that's pretty cool. Oh, anyway, Walsh Shop has that O with the stroke through it, so I never quite know how to pronounce it, but nonetheless, great wallpaper. This is not a paid advertisement, but I do like the Walsh Shop's wallpaper, and I really love some of the designs, especially the wave design in the new Lingua Franca mashup. Everything is a mashup these days. I feel like everything is like Lingua Franca X Wall Shop, when you get together on a design. And so Lingua Franca, I guess Lingua Franca is a design studio, and I guess that they've designed the Wall Shop line of papers, or maybe it's not called a line, but anyway, that's that. Well, all that got me thinking about wall art and walls and humans making patterns for walls, and I happened upon the oldest pattern ever created, that we have, that exists. And this is a pattern that was drawn intentionally on a stone in a cave that is in an area in the southern part of South Africa, in the Cape there, and it's the Blombos Cave. I hope I said that close to how it's pronounced. I think that's the word bloem and bos, which bloem means flower and uh, or bloom. It's bloom, right? The flower in uh, Dutch and Afrikaans and those kinds of languages. I guess it means kind of flower in English too, but we say bloom with a kind of longer ooh sound. And then bos is the word for a forest or a bush. That's where we get bush in English, the word bush. But I don't think it's, I think here it's just forest. Oh, bosque is another word. I think that's related to that. Bosque, if you've ever heard that word. Bosque for a forest. So that, I guess, what would be a nice version of that in English? Flowerwood. Flowerwood. That sounds nice. Bloomwood doesn't sound great to me. Bloombush sounds silly. Flower bush doesn't make sense. Hey, I like flowerwood. So anyway, the Blombos Cave has on a piece of stone found there has a ochre, which is a iron oxide, um, uh, kind of hash pattern with some vertical and horizontal strokes, and that has been dated to something like 73,000 years before the present, and that's the oldest really intentional drawing that we know of right now for human beings. And they might find older ones in the future, but no doubt they'll find them in Africa, where human beings first became human beings. So there are also cave paintings that are extremely old in, I think 55,000 years old in Indonesia, in the Sulawesi Island, that are also super cool. And obviously, you all probably know about the European cave paintings in France and Spain, places like that are pretty famous as well, which I think are 40,000 years old. So human beings have been since day one. Human beings have been decorating with patterns and decorating caves with paintings, and even to this day, we're putting stuff on walls to decorate them with patterns like wallpaper, etc. And so I decided that I would create a repeating pattern out of the oldest human drawing that we have so far, from the Blombos Cave in Africa and the southernmost part of the southern part of Africa. And that is on the thumbnail for today's episode of Life's Potluck Buffet. So enjoy my rough impression of the oldest existing human drawing that we have. And in honor of that 73,000 or so year old human artist and designer whose name we don't know, I'm going to draw a card from the Life's Potluck Buffet card deck and see what our card for the day is. So, yellow lemons, blue dumplings, magenta noodles, cards, tell us some things. All right, and here's the card that's sticking out. It's card 48. Find out how you act when things go awry. So think back to when you've done something in an emergency situation, whatever the nature or level of that emergency. Tell or write out the story. And in retrospect, think about, why did you act as you did? And what does the action say about your priorities? So give that a thought today, and I'll see you tomorrow on Life's Potluck Buffet.